All right, so we're diving into Wilt Chamberlain,
Wilt Chamberlain.
a name that's like synonymous with basketball.
Yeah.
But how well do you really know the man behind all the points and the records?
Well, and that's the thing, right? You see the highlight reels, you see the
You
stats.
see the 100-point game.
Exactly. And it's easy to just focus on like the sheer dominance
Yeah.
on the court. But when you really dig into Wilt's life,
Yeah.
it's so much more than that.
I think what's so interesting about him is that he was playing
Yeah.
during this really pivotal time in American history and in the NBA.
100%.
Like, think about it.
Yeah.
The NBA's evolving.
Yeah.
Racial dynamics are changing
Same
in
shit.
America, and he's right in the middle of it all.
And he's this larger-than-life figure,
Right.
both on and off the court.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we're going to peel back the layers.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the stats.
Oh.
We're going to look at some articles. We even have some personal anecdotes. So
Wow.
get ready.
Let's do it.
All right. So Wilt's story starts in Philadelphia.
Okay.
He goes to Overbrook High School.
Overbrook.
And, I mean, this guy was already a legend
Oh,
in
yeah.
high school.
I mean, you hear the stories, right?
Right. He scores 71 points
It's insane.
in a single game.
71 points in a high school game.
71.
It's hard to even fathom.
It's mind-boggling, and I think that's where you start to see
Right.
those early glimpses of just,
It's a premonition, right?
yes,
Of what's to come.
of the dominance that's to come. And there's this story
I love this story.
about Red Auerbach,
A legendary Red Auerbach.
the Celtics coach,
Yeah.
and he sees Wilt playing at Kutcher's Hotel.
Kutcher, yeah, it was like this legendary basketball camp.
Okay.
And all the scouts would go
Right.
to see the up-and-coming talent.
Okay.
And Red sees Wilt, and he's like,
I got to get this guy.
you got to get this guy
To Boston.
to Boston, but he can't draft him directly out of high school. So he tries to convince Wilt to go to a New England college.
Smart.
Right. Hoping to snag him in the draft later.
That's a good strategy.
Didn't work out that way.
It didn't work out.
Ah.
But that was the same trip where he plays B.H. Bourne, right?
Oh, yeah, that's the one.
A college star.
Yeah.
Who some people say, quit basketball.
Yeah, it's like this legendary story.
After losing to Wilt.
Some people say he was so demoralized
mean-
after that one-on-one game that he just gave up on the sport.
That's got to mess with your confidence.
I can't even imagine
Right.
losing to someone that badly.
Like, I'm done.
I'm out of here.
Switching careers.
It shows you the kind of impact Wilt had,
Yeah.
even as a young player.
So he ends up going to Kansas,
The University of Kansas, yeah.
which adds to this whole,
Yeah.
legendary status.
I mean, he's already a big deal
Yeah.
coming out of high school.
Yeah.
But going to Kansas puts him on the national stage.
Right. And it's not all smooth sailing, though.
No, not at all.
Especially when you think about the
Like,
racial
see, oh,
dynamics.
It's a huge part of his story.
The time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the 1957 NCAA tournament,
Okay.
they're playing in Dallas.
Yeah.
And
Segregated Dallas.
segregated Dallas.
It's important to remember that context.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Wilt and his teammates are facing,
Yeah.
some pretty terrible treatment.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine.
Racial slurs.
Yeah.
Hostility from the crowds.
And this is all while they're trying to compete at the highest level of college basketball.
It's hard to even imagine playing under that kind of pressure.
It's a testament to their mental toughness.
Absolutely. And despite all of that,
Yeah.
he leads Kansas
Yeah.
to the championship game.
An incredible feat.
Yeah, he's named the tournament's most outstanding player.
Rightfully so.
But they lose
Right.
in triple overtime
Heartbreaking.
to North Carolina.
A game for the ages.
And you have to wonder how that loss
I know
shaped
how.
him. Going into the NBA,
Does it fuel his fire?
does it fuel the fire?
Does it make him even more determined to win?
Right, because then in 1959,
Okay.
he signs with the Philadelphia Warriors.
Back in his hometown.
Back in his hometown
Chill.
for a then record $30,000.
$30,000. Can you believe that?
It's crazy to think about.
It's peanuts compared to what players make today.
I know, right?
But back then it was a huge deal.
It was a fortune.
A king's ransom.
And he immediately makes a splash.
Oh, yeah.
Rookie year,
Okay.
he averages 37.6 points
Ridiculous.
and 27 rebounds per game.
I mean, those numbers are just absurd.
It's video game numbers.
It's like he's playing on a different level.
Right. And here's the thing, though.
What's that?
Those early years, despite all of that individual brilliance,
Okay.
are marked by a lack of championship success,
That's right.
which seems crazy given those stats.
Yeah, you would think with those numbers,
Right.
the championships would just follow automatically.
You would think so.
But it wasn't that simple.
So this is where this whole, like, loser label
The L word.
starts to come up, right?
It's a label that haunted him.
It's not that he wasn't winning.
Right. He was winning games.
He was putting up numbers.
He's sitting up insane numbers.
And he wasn't winning championships.
And that's all that seemed to matter to some people.
And this is all happening while Bill Russell
Oh, yeah.
and the Celtics are building their dynasty.
The Celtics were the team to beat.
Right. So those comparisons are
Inevitable. You can't talk about Wilt
right.
without talking about Russell.
Right. And they definitely painted a certain picture
They did.
of Wilt.
They painted him as the guy who couldn't win the big one.
Right. And, you know, he was criticized
Oh, yeah.
for being too focused on individual stats.
Right. The me first kind of player.
Not being a team player.
Even though he was obviously carrying the team
Right.
on his back most nights.
So he's racking up points. He's setting records.
Yeah.
But somehow getting tagged as a loser.
The narrative was set.
So did he just ignore the critics and keep doing his thing?
That's what's so fascinating about Wilt.
Okay.
Instead of doubling down,
Yeah.
he actually starts to change his game
Really?
in the late 60s.
Wow.
He starts to prioritize passing defense over just pure scoring.
Interesting. So it's almost like he was consciously trying to shed
Yeah.
that label.
I think there was a part of him that wanted
Yeah.
to prove everyone wrong.
And it worked.
It did.
He wins his first NBA championship
1967,
with the Sixers,
the Philadelphia 76ers,
breaking the Celtics' 8-year winning streak.
finally dethroning the dynasty.
It's almost poetic.
It is.
Like he shifts his focus
Yeah.
and then captures the championship.
And he doesn't stop there.
Right. He goes on to win another one
With the Lakers,
with the Lakers in 72.
cementing his legacy.
So, like, no matter what the critics said,
Right.
he was a winner.
A two-time NBA champion.
It really is like a turning point in
Yeah.
his story.
You can't call him a loser anymore.
No, you can't.
Not after 2 rings.
It makes you wonder, though,
What?
did he buy into this idea?
I mean, like being a team player.
Yeah. Or was it more about proving everyone wrong?
I think it's probably a bit of both.
Right.
I mean, he was so competitive.
Yeah,
He always wanted to be the best.
of course.
But I think he also realized
Yeah.
that winning championships
Yeah.
requires a different approach.
So maybe it was a personal evolution and a
Yeah.
calculated strategy.
I mean, he figured out that
Yeah.
he could achieve both.
Right. Have his cake and eat it too.
Exactly. Dominate individually and win as a team.
But what about his life outside of basketball?
Oh, man. That's where things get really interesting.
Because you can't just be playing basketball
Right.
24/7.
Wilt was more than just a basketball player.
Right.
He was a businessman,
Okay.
an actor.
Really an actor.
Yeah. He actually had some roles in movies and TV shows.
I didn't know that.
He was even in a Conan the Barbarian movie.
What?
Yeah, with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's true.
It's true.
That's awesome.
And get this, he was a volleyball champion.
Volleyball.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming.
Wilt was an incredible all-around athlete.
Right.
He wasn't just limited to basketball.
So he was good at volleyball.
Good. He was great.
Okay.
He became the president of the International Volleyball Association,
Wow.
and he was inducted into their Hall of Fame.
That's wild.
He was a dominant force on the volleyball court, too.
So not just Basketball Hall of Fame.
Nope, Volleyball Hall of Fame as well.
That's amazing.
And it wasn't just volleyball.
Yeah.
He was a big supporter of women's sports, too.
Okay.
He sponsored teams.
Really?
Yeah, particularly in track and field.
So he was like an advocate
He was ahead of his time in that regard.
for women's sports,
Absolutely.
which is interesting,
Why is that?
given some of the controversies
Right.
surrounding his personal life,
Right.
like specifically the claims he made
Yeah.
about his relationships with women.
That's a complicated part of his legacy.
It's a really complicated part of his legacy.
Yeah.
It's something we can't ignore.
No, we have to acknowledge it.
But it's also worth noting
I think so.
that his support for women's sports
Yeah.
was pretty progressive
Especially for that era.
for that time.
And for a high-profile athlete like him,
It adds another layer
definitely.
to understanding who he was.
He was a complex figure.
a man of
I'm
contradictions.
sure.
All right, so we've got Wilt, the high school phenom,
Okay.
the college star facing those racial barriers,
Yeah.
the NBA record breaker battling the loser label,
Right.
the champion who adapted his game,
Yeah.
And then this multifaceted individual
Yeah.
with passions beyond the court.
It's a lot to unpack.
It's a lot.
But it's all part of the Wilt Chamberlain story.
And I think it speaks to his impact
Oh, absolutely.
on the
Yeah.
world beyond basketball.
He was one of the first Black superstars
Right.
in any sport, really.
And he was navigating
Yeah.
a society
A society grappling with immense change.
that was undergoing these huge changes.
Yeah, both in the sporting world
Yeah.
and in society as a whole.
It's amazing to think about how much the NBA has changed
Oh, yeah.
since Wilt's time.
The game is completely different now.
Like the pace,
Yeah.
the rules,
The style of play.
the strategies.
Yeah.
It's like a different game.
Oh, it is.
And there's this article
Oh, yeah. What article is that?
that talks about the evolution of basketball.
Okay.
And it's fascinating to see how some of those changes
Yeah.
were directly influenced by players like Wilt.
Like how?
Well, for example, the goaltending rule.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
It was implemented
Right.
because players like Wilt and George Mikan,
Yeah, those guys were giants.
they were just too good
They were swatting everything away.
at blocking shots.
They were changing the game.
Right.
They were too dominant.
So they had to change the rule.
They had to level the playing field.
And they even outlawed dunking
Right.
in college basketball for a while.
Seriously.
Yeah, supposedly to limit the dominance of Lou Alcindor,
Who later became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
who later became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
They were scared of his skyhook.
So Wilt wasn't just playing the game.
Right.
He was shaping it.
He was a pioneer.
Right.
He forced the league to evolve.
And that evolution is still ongoing today.
100%.
It makes you wonder what Wilt would think of today's NBA
That's a great question.
with its emphasis on three-pointers,
Yeah.
analytics, and this more fluid style of play.
I think he'd be fascinated by
Do
it.
you think he'd embrace it?
Maybe.
Or would he be a critic?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Right.
He was always someone who spoke his mind.
Right. But I think this discussion about Wilt in the modern NBA,
Yeah.
it kind of highlights a bigger point.
What's that?
His legacy
Yeah.
continues to influence the game,
Decades later,
even decades later.
he left an indelible mark on basketball.
It's not just about the on-court stuff.
It's about his cultural impact, too.
Right. He was a celebrity,
Yeah.
a businessman, an author.
He wrote an autobiography
Right.
that caused quite a stir.
Like a larger-than-life personality.
He was a true icon.
There's this quote from an article.
Oh, which one?
From Slam.
Okay, I love Slam.
And it says, he broke down barriers, challenged conventions,
Wow.
and used his platform to speak his mind.
That's Wilt in a nutshell.
He was a trailblazer.
Absolutely.
In many ways.
He wasn't afraid to be himself,
And to speak out,
even when it was controversial.
even when it was unpopular.
Yeah, he was a true individual.
So he achieved all of this
Yeah.
during a time of immense
Yeah.
social and political upheaval.
Think about it.
Imagine navigating the civil rights movement,
Yeah.
the Vietnam War,
The changing media landscape.
the changing media landscape, all while being a black athlete in the
Yeah.
spotlight.
It was a different world back then.
There's an article
Oh, what's it called?
that describes Wilt's journey
Okay.
as taking place in Jim Crow America,
No.
which really puts everything into perspective.
It does.
It really does.
Yeah.
He faced discrimination and prejudice,
He did.
but he never backed down
Nope.
from speaking out against injustice.
He was a vocal supporter of civil rights,
He was.
and he used his platform to advocate for equality and opportunity.
Especially for everyone.
So he was a pioneer in that sense.
Yeah.
Using his voice.
Yeah.
Even when it was difficult.
Even when it was dangerous.
And it's a reminder that Wilt's story
Yeah.
isn't just about basketball.
The human story.
It's about overcoming adversity.
It's about fighting for what you believe in.
And it's a story that resonates.
It does.
Even today.
Absolutely.
Like a timeless story.
You know, one thing that struck me
What's that?
is how Wilt challenged the definition of what it means to be a winner.
Early in his career, he was so focused on individual achievement
Right.
that he got labeled a loser.
Even though he was statistically dominating the league.
Exactly.
Right.
But then he goes and wins 2 championships
Yeah.
by adapting his game and embracing a more team-oriented approach.
Right.
It's almost like there were 2 different Wilts.
It really is like 2 different chapters
Yeah.
in his career.
The individual Wilt and the team Wilt.
So what really defines success in sports?
That's the question, isn't it?
Is it the individual accolades or the championships?
Or is it something else entirely?
Right.
Is it about impact? impact,
Right.
legacy.
It's a good question.
And then there's a role of personality and image.
Yeah.
Wilt was criticized for his outspokenness
Right.
and his lifestyle.
And his lifestyle.
Would that be different today?
I mean, social media has definitely changed things.
It has.
But I think his willingness to be himself
Yeah,
would still resonate with people.
I think so too.
Right.
He was authentic.
And that's something that people always admire.
But there's one last piece.
Okay, what's that?
We need to examine
Okay.
Wilt's relationship with women.
Yeah, that's a sensitive topic.
It's a sensitive topic.
But it's part of his story.
We can't ignore it.
We know about the controversial claims in his autobiography,
Yeah.
but we also need to acknowledge his support for women in sports.
It's a complex issue.
It is.
And I think it's important to avoid judgment
Okay.
and try to understand the complexities of his life
Right.
and the context of his time.
We can learn from his triumphs and his mistakes
Yeah.
and appreciate his impact.
On basketball and beyond.
Yeah.
Wow, this deep dive has taken us down some unexpected paths.
It always does.
It feels like we've only scratched the surface
There's always more to explore.
of Wilt's story.
That's the beauty of it.
Right.
That's the beauty of learning about history
Yeah.
and the lives of those who came before us. It really is amazing how much ground we've covered, and it still feels like we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, Wilt's life was so full.
It really was.
So much to explore.
Okay, so let's shift gears for a second.
Okay.
We've been talking about his impact, his controversies,
Right.
but we haven't really answered the big question.
The big one.
Was Wilt Chamberlain a winner?
It's funny, isn't it?
It is kind of funny.
You look at his stats.
Yeah, 2 NBA championships, 4 MVP awards, countless records.
A resume that screams winner.
Right. But then you have the loser label
That followed him for years.
and the comparisons to Bill Russell.
And the Celtics dynasty.
It's like those early years where he was putting up these crazy numbers,
Right.
but not winning titles.
Yeah, it's like it colored the perception of his whole career.
For some people,
Yeah, some people just couldn't get past that.
even with all the accomplishments that came later.
It's hard to escape that narrative sometimes.
But I think it's crucial to look beyond
I agree.
the championship.
And consider his broader impact.
Right, he revolutionized the center position,
Absolutely.
forced rule changes.
Like the goaltending rule.
Right.
That's a direct result of Wilt's dominance.
And he inspired generations of players.
Countless players.
That's a legacy that goes way beyond wins and losses.
It really does.
You know, it makes me think about
Yeah,
how different the definition of winning was back then.
that's a good point.
Individual achievements were celebrated,
Oh, yeah.
but ultimately it was about those championships.
The ultimate prize.
And you can't forget the context of the time.
No, you can't.
Wilt was doing all of this
Yeah.
while navigating a society,
A society wrestling with racial inequality.
wrestling with huge social change.
He was a black icon
Right.
in a world that wasn't always ready for that.
And he never shied away
Nope.
from speaking out against injustice,
He used his platform
even when it was unpopular,
to advocate for civil rights
to advocate for equality.
for everyone.
So it's a powerful reminder that his story
Yeah.
isn't just about basketball.
It's about fighting for what you believe in,
It's about pushing boundaries.
both on and off the court.
It's about challenging perceptions
Yeah.
and using your voice
To make a difference.
to make a difference.
That's what makes Wilt's story so compelling.
We've talked about his basketball career, his activism,
Yeah.
his larger-than-life personality.
Right.
But there's one more thing that always stood out to me.
What's that?
His love for volleyball.
Ah, yes, volleyball.
It speaks to his athleticism,
He was a phenomenal athlete.
but also to this drive to excel
In everything he did.
in whatever he set his mind to.
He wasn't satisfied with just being a basketball legend,
Right. He wanted to conquer other arenas.
and he did,
He became president of the International Volleyball Association,
and was inducted into their Hall of Fame.
Volleyball Hall of Fame.
Not just basketball.
It just goes to show how diverse his talents were.
He was a true Renaissance man.
And he wasn't just a player.
What do you mean?
He even coached for a bit.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The San Diego Conquistadors.
And the ABA.
It's like he was constantly seeking new challenges,
Always pushing himself.
always pushing the limits.
Never content with the status quo.
This whole deep dive has
Yeah.
been a wild ride.
It has been.
Amazing to think about
How
one
rare.
person
One person
could have
had
such a profound impact
a lasting impact.
on so many different aspects of life.
Wilt Chamberlain was a force of nature.
He really was.
A true original.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the life of Wilt Chamberlain,
Okay.
I want to leave you with one final thought.
All right, I'm listening.
Wilt was both celebrated and criticized For his individuality,
Yeah,
for his pursuit of personal greatness.
it was a double-edged sword.
So how do you think his career would be viewed in today's NBA? That's a tough one. With its focus on team play.
And analytics.
Would he be seen as a hero
Or relic.
or something else entirely?
It's hard to say.
There's no easy answer.
But one thing's for sure.
What's that?
Wilt Chamberlain was a force of nature.
He was a true original.
And his story will continue to fascinate and inspire us.
For generations to come.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.